Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's 30-minute webinar. My name is Dan Schmidt, Systems Engineer here at Variphy. Today, I'll be your host in today's session. We are joined today with Matt Sykes, aka Matty Ice, another SE here at Variphy. And in today's session, we're going to be focusing on the use of custom labels and attributes for CCM and CCX reporting capabilities. Before we get all into it here, we want to announce that next week, a big day, next Wednesday, is our seasonal house party, March 17th at 11 a.m. Pacific. We got a lot in store here, awarding over $5,000 in prizes. You'll get to hear some success stories from our valued customers. You'll hear from myself and our co-founder Lane regarding our Variphy roadmap. We will also be learning about our long-term roadmap and everything that's coming up in our next major release, 12.2.4, which is going to be encompassing our new offering, Variphy Cloud, Cube reporting, as well as chat delivery. We'll also get into a deep dive technical session with our SE team, talking a little bit about as-built reporting and our audit or change management features. So if you are interested in wanting to register, please visit our website, variphy.com/webinars, and register just like any other webinar that we have. Okay, we look forward to seeing you there. All right, as stated here today, we're joined with Matt Sykes, talking a little bit and doing a live demo on custom labels and custom attributes within the application. Quick agenda for today's session here. We'll go over a quick overview of Variphy and what we do. Matt will get us into a live demo illustrating how to use custom labels and custom attributes within the Variphy application. We'll then do some Q&A and get some of your questions answered. Please direct your questions into the Q&A panel on the bottom right side of the WebEx. Please do not direct those in the chat panel, as we may not see those. And after Q&A, we'll of course award one lucky winner a $50 Amazon gift card. So hang around to see if you've won. All right, so quick overview of Variphy and what we do. So Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We do provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, customizable dashboarding and widgets, CCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, DN and DID management. But in today's session, we're going to primarily be focusing on UCM and CCX call analytics and the custom labeling components. If you do have any other questions on any of the other features listed here, please do direct those to us and we'll get those answered and addressed offline. Okay. Before we do get into the demo with Matt today here, again, we'll be announcing that we do now offer a new product called Ninja Enhanced Consulting Services, or NECS. This is a product where Variphy's SE team will be engaged on a one-on-one basis with you to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboard, and system monitoring assistance. It's a service that provides a dedicated Variphy SE to your organization to do the heavy lifting of all the report creation and generation. So if you have any interest, again, please do let us know and we'll get more information over to you. All right, so without further ado, I'll hand it over to Matt to get us into the demo for custom labels and custom attributes. Matt, welcome.
Thank you, Dan. All right, let me go ahead and share out my page here. All right, now we're in business. Okay, welcome everyone. Matt here with Variphy. Today we will be revisiting custom attributes and custom labels for the Variphy CUCM reporting and/or dashboard widgeting, we'll call it. I'm starting everyone out right here in our analytics history ad hoc search, which is where I live. I always say on certain calls, because I can build anything I need to and analyze and filter whatever I need to from the history search. So what we're looking for today is actually to kind of build business unit based reports. Now, certainly since we're tapping into the call manager, we can certainly read and see the end users within the call manager. But there is definitely some limited information on the end user profiles that we actually query this information from, this metadata as we call it. Definitely when you within Variphy, columns or detailed point pieces, certainly with the CUCM acronym denotes that we're actually querying this information from call manager. It does not live natively in the CDR. Okay, so just real briefly, I'm looking at some bidirectional traffic for a department. I'm picking on my field and my product departments. But first, let's take a quick look into the call manager here real briefly. Because definitely what we're going to be looking to do is look for additional pieces that we can actually filter off of or actually group off of for our end users or groups. So jumping into Call Manager real briefly, let's get logged in here. All right, in my in my 12.5 UCM here, I'll go into my end user bucket and just want to pull up my own end user. So search for Matt. Okay, I see Matt. I am in the field department here. Okay, so off of my end user profile record here within Call Manager, we can see certainly my first name, display name, last name, my extension number, email address, as well as my manager ID. Yes, I do report to Batman. But certainly this is maybe potentially a limited, maybe organizational level of data that we can field, let's say. Certainly we have the department, the department field that is fed to the end user profiles, normally from an Active Directory sync. I'm going to take a walk past that in a second or two. But certainly the only org level I have underneath my end user profile is department. Certainly I can group things off of department and or end user IDs, device descriptions, but maybe I want other data points, maybe the other business unit data points that unfortunately this this record here fails to provide for us. So what Call Manager doesn't tell you initially, I suppose, is we can actually have up to 5 additional custom attributes actually in Verify, additional org unit representations. So let's just take a quick look at Active Directory real briefly. Now, I'd say 95+% of all the UCM environments that we entertain are certainly being fed with an Active Directory sync, which we see right here. My user is an AD sync user. Pull up my remote one more time. Okay, now within my Active Directory server here, that's where I'm remoted into right now. I'm into my user bucket. I'm looking at my user here. Let's go ahead and open myself up. Certainly the same things I'm seeing in my Call Manager end user record here, my first name, last name, display name, my extension number, email address, etc. Also the organization. So it will have my department, my department field is being populated here, so that's where that field is coming from. Some other bits and pieces, there's Batman. But what we can do is we can certainly use the attribute editor, and we can actually specify other pieces that you may actually want to map into your Call Manager end users. Now, unfortunately, Call Manager doesn't list them out on the page for the end users themselves, but certainly they can be mapped to the users, and Verify can actually sniff them out during the Excel queries. So for my record, I actually built on, here it is. Okay, underneath the city. I'm actually using as a custom attribute, as well as, what else am I using here? Office. So I'm using Office as attribute 2. I'm using my city as the, I guess, attribute 1, and I'm having them mapped from Active Directory into the Call Manager through a nightly sync. So just to show you where that information can be, I will go there in a moment, but definitely there's a lot of attributes within Call Manager that can certainly be packaged and built on and synced up with the end users in Call Manager. And then Verify, we have the luxury of being able to pull down that information and group it, filter off of it, etc. So let's just take a quick little peek here at my Call Manager. So I can see certainly there's my Matt Sykes user record and Active Directory. I'm not going to see what my custom attributes are at the moment, but if populated and turned on within the sync, we can certainly see what fields are part of the sync. So I'll go into my LDAP system configurations, go into directory. I should only have the 180 server. There we go. Here's my 254. And I can see what the sync is actually bringing over from AD to the UCM end users. Certainly these are the standard user fields to be synchronized. That's all the relative information, given name, surname, department, mail, all that good fun stuff we just saw. But also we can use custom fields here. So we can certainly, you can certainly sync additional custom attributes from Active Directory. I'm using city and office as we saw off of my user record there. This is going to be 1 and 2. But certainly we have these mapped now into the end user record within Call Manager. Like I said, though, underneath the end user profile record, you're not going to see these, but certainly Verify, we can sniff them out. And I actually have an example here. So I'm in the field department myself. So if I wanted to pick on myself, I certainly could. I can certainly see there's Dre is in the same department I am. We can certainly see we're both in the field department, but maybe I don't want field. Maybe field is not a good grouping mechanism for me for the report and or dashboard widget. So in my history section here, which I can synthesize and analyze the data to my heart's content, I do know that I have synced those 2 custom attribute fields over from Active Directory into my UCM end user record. So I'm going to grab the originating UCM end user custom attribute 1 and 2 because I know I have those populated, or at least they should be. We can certainly populate up to 5 of those custom attributes as well. We've got originating, dialed, as you can see, and then the terminatings. Once again, anything that has this capitalized CUCM acronym within our column types, our search filters, denotes that's actually metadata we're actually querying from Call Manager Live. So I'll grab originating and terminating end user IDs. Let me just go ahead and slide these up in the details section here so I can read this a little more intuitively from left to right. Originating, I like with originating, so let's button that up there. Let's grab these 2. pull this to the back of the terminating section that I have. I like to read these left to right from originating to terminating. So all right, that looks good there. Pull it down one. Okay, I'll go ahead and save this. So based off of the search query I have for the current week, keying off of bidirectionally inbound or outbound traffic on this departments of field and or product, which I'm certainly a part of. So I've now added into the detail section these two custom attributes. So now I can actually see what was actually synced from Active Directory to my end user profiles and column manager. I can see what Dre has. I can see what, certainly what I have. I have this office location of shy_8383 in the ice cave. And we can see those are calls actually being, originated or outbound calls placed by Dre and myself. I'm certain I have other colleagues in here as well. But certainly sliding over to the terminating section here. Okay, these are all outbound dials. Let me scroll down a little bit. Maybe I can find some. Here we go. I'm on the receiving end of some of these calls here, so I'm on the terminating side. Here are my new custom attributes that you cannot see, unfortunately, from my end user profile. But certainly we have synced them with the Active Directory sync on the nightly routine. So I know that I can pull them out of here, even though I can't readily see them in the UCM. But certainly within Verify, we can certainly tap into those custom attributes that are not showcased. Now with that, that's all good and fine. Okay, good. So there we go. So now we have some custom attributes that we can certainly play with. I can build reports to filter off of a specific, attribute 1 based off of this office code, or attribute 2, in whichever direction I see fit. But then from there also, the second half of this webinar, we definitely want to touch on the custom labels, because certainly the definition, or I guess the layout of these may not look as attractive to the eye, let's say, to the end user audience who may be receiving reports and or viewing these dashboards. So certainly we can build custom labels to then relabel this stuff. Now on reports and groupings, originating or terminating CUCM end user custom attribute 1 is a little lengthy for a column header, and certainly can garner some additional questions as opposed to valued content from an audience. So we definitely have the options for Contact Center Express as well, but definitely we're focusing on the UCM here. But I can go into our configure option within analytics, and I can go into custom label sets. Now, if you haven't used custom label sets before, certainly do know that you can get to the configuration option for them and construct some. You can have multiple label sets. You can use label sets when you need to, but let's just check out the label sets I have pre-built here. So underneath Matt's label sets, let's just double check. We can see certainly what I've got built in here. So I've got 21 detail columns relabeled, 28 search criteria pieces relabeled, 25 groupings, and 8 call statistic types. Certainly can have more. There's definitely a laundry list of options. You can certainly spend hours actually cultivating these or replacing these labels. So just real briefly, we'll go down the gauntlet of the wrenches here for the configuration for this set. So certainly these are the out-of-the-box standard call manager interpretation terminology for these, but certainly we can enable the replacing of the label and preface whatever we need to here. I'm replacing calling party number with caller ID, daytime origination, et cetera, but definitely the attributes. So I've got custom attributes 1 and 2 in here on all directions and combinations. But so maybe I want to relabel this to be dialed off office code, or dialed agent, or dialed location off of the custom attribute 2. Definitely will look a little better than the full layout of the default terminology. So I have this label set already built for combinations, some unique stuff for this webinar, but definitely there is there still are a laundry list of available options for you to relabel per direction, per combinations, etc., as well as for the search criteria as well. So the search criteria, I mimicked a lot of this as well, but definitely we still have a laundry list of other options and search criteria to be relabeled. Grouping types as well. So definitely we want this to kind of pair through so it actually has a good user experience. So I have kind of replicated these accordingly. And then if I wanted to hop back potentially to my my history search, where I was keying off of those couple departments for this time frame, and maybe I don't actually want to see these. Maybe I actually want to utilize something different. So I can actually go to my end user profile here, and I can actually go under my custom label sets and actually change from system default to my own, the Matt label set. I'll save that, and once this detail comes back to us, the column headers should be replaced and relabeled. There we are. Okay, so there we are. So now I've relabeled everything. And also the nice piece about our custom labels, as you can see, when they're in use, certainly the hover over is really nice. So this call orig time was, obviously the replacement for the daytime origination. Certainly sliding over caller ID was the calling party number. There's calling device. Certainly the hover overs tell you exactly what the fields are replacing. We definitely, this is our originating office code. I have that replaced in a custom attribute of 1. Definitely, that's a pretty long label name for what I can get away with for 11, I suppose, 11 or so characters, maybe with 2 spaces, and then attribute 2 as well. And then we can certainly see combinations, but I can slide over here, and even on the terminating side, the same as well. So the calls that I had received, certainly I can see my terminating all the department, yes, but as well as the attribute 1 and attribute 2. So now we can actually use these labels if we wanted to for search set pieces. So if I wanted to, actually, now that I'm using that label set on my user profile, I will actually see that my search criteria fields are actually now different since I have 20 plus or so. So caller ID is now actually not caller ID, but I'll add that criterion. We'll hover over to see that that certainly is the calling party number. So that can certainly replace and make the, I suppose, the report deliverables a little more pleasant on the eyes for people that are maybe not as technical or don't even want, or that don't want to see, I guess, the Cisco default terminology because it could be a little muddy. Okay, so with these groupings, let's go actually take a look at some sample reports that I have here built based off of these based off of these new attributes. Now let me zoom in for all's eyes. All right, so I'm focusing on this one, just on specific attribute 1 and inbound traffic here. And here's kind of what I'm mentioning here with the labels. This is pretty long and maybe not as attractive. We can certainly replace that, but we are keying off of these custom attributes now. So in this agent set here, I'm keying off of inbound traffic to those couple departments and then breaking it down secondarily in the grouping based off of that attribute 1 and then by the end user ID. So that's certainly why we can see these custom attributes that aren't on the end user profile now easily manipulated and inserted into the Variphy report with the lookups. So that is nice, but then yeah, the custom label is a little muddy there. So we would probably want to replace that, but let's just kind of cover these other ones real briefly. So this is custom attribute 1. I'm using this office code here. Once again, we're still using the out-of-box system default labels. This is using attribute 2. So this is where I'm using these location identifiers. And then I'm also secondarily grouping based off of end user ID. Okay, and then obviously we've got plenty of tables underneath this as well with some scenario tables and charts, but also, let me scroll past this, but then also, once again, we've got volume tables. I have grouping tables in here. Once again, we keep seeing this, this label, or this grouping label with the standard default labeling description on it, which definitely can be a little misleading or maybe questionable, let's say. So we can certainly replace those at, all throughout the product, even from the searching aspect. Here's another one where I'm actually garnering both inbound and outbound traffic, based off of the custom attribute 1. So I can see our office codes right here. Now I'm throwing in total call count, but also we've got originating call count, originating average call duration, and terminating call count. Potentially those could also be misleading as far as what directions they are. Well, now originating is actually outbound and terminating is inbound. So maybe if we wanted to relabel that, in addition to the grouping labels, I would probably venture to do so as well. As we scroll down a little further, some of my other charts, let's see here, where were they from earlier? Yeah, I mean, originating or terminating CUCM end user ID, is a little cumbersome, I think, for labels, but that's the luxury we have with the Variphy. Now we can go ahead and replace those. So here's just another sample with default labeling mechanisms here, originating call count, terminating call count. So let's actually take a look at some reports, these exact reports that I have using the custom labels. So let me just pull these over real quickly and hope they populate on the monitor I want. So I'll use this one with the, okay, so this is a custom attribute for inbound and outbound traffic here. Let's go ahead and zoom in. So now, as opposed to seeing actually the originator terminating UCM custom attribute 1 and end user ID, I've relabeled these to use the label set here now. So I can see originator terminating office code. If I wanted to drop off orig or term in the label, I most certainly could, and on or the agent to show maybe code and agent. Can certainly do that. Now, outbound originating call count, terminating call count, I've replaced those with directional based labels here. So instead of originating, it now says outbound. Instead of terminating, it now says inbound. And did this applied the same here for their durations columns as well. And then just kind of moseying down past a couple of data tables and some charts. That's for the search set as a whole, but broken down here by the individual agents for their volume tables as well. These labels look much more attractive than they did prior. We've got our abandons, our forwards, voicemails if applicable. I don't think I have any voicemail here. But yes, definitely very easy to go ahead and relabel this. Now, this is just, from the report standpoint, we can certainly do this to the widgets as well. So let me just take a spin past maybe on one other report here with Matt's custom labels on it. Here we are. Okay, so inbound call count, once again, as opposed to terminating call count, because I'm focusing everything on the terminating side of this. So terminating office code and terminating agent. If I don't want those terms in there, once again, I can certainly update the label to pull those out, but I have them definitely for kind of explanation demonstration purposes here. All right, now also this also applies to our widgets and dashboards. So let's just kind of segue over to couple of my dashboards. Now what we have here built is some directional stuff on this board. I'm solely focusing on inbound traffic and some distribution. So we can certainly see here, I'll hover over real briefly, terminating CUCM end user custom attribute 1. Now, once again, that is not a very attractive looking column header name. I don't believe it is, so certainly we can replace those as well. But we're also, once again, pulling these custom attributes down that have been mapped to our end users and call manager from Active Directory. So we have that luxury of these custom attributes as well. We can group off of them, but let's actually relabel them in a moment. So certainly I'm keying off of the attribute 2 down here so we can see the locations. There's Ice Cave, Auto Speedway, those specific, terminating call count, because this board at the moment is actually using all of the standard out of the box Cisco terminology labels. So let's actually go ahead and flip that around. I will click on the appearance. But the appearance, I can actually do this per widget, but I'm going to do this board wide. So I can certainly, I'm going to change my label set for the UCM to Matt's label set. Now, once all of these populate, they will actually have the label sets that correspond to the set that we're to use. And this is going to drive me nuts. Excuse me. Okay, so those should populate in a moment or two with our new custom labels. They are behind the scenes as I get rid of the announcement of the day widget here. All right, there we are. Much better. Okay, and then once again, the hover over still applies just like it did in the history search under analytics. So hovering over this, I can see term office code is much better than the long distinguished custom attribute 1 label. Inbound call count, replacing terminating call count, and so on and so forth. Looks like I didn't. I didn't for this one, but certainly rolling down here. Obviously, the custom attribute 2. This is for location, and here we are terminating location. If I didn't want term on there, certainly I can go back to the label and remove that, and this should populate momentarily with my end users as well. Come back to that. Jumping to a different board now. I've got a combination of inbound and outbound traffic here. So we can certainly see abandonment, all that good fun stuff. I'm only keying off of 1 day here. But once again, I am using custom attributes for the filterings for this distribution widget here. So if we look underneath here, the primary grouping type, I am using the bidirectional end user attribute 1. So I just didn't relabel that one. But certainly it is bearing the fruit for those custom attributes that we have synced from Active Directory into the UCM for that high-level reporting or different business unit reporting. Okay, I've synthesized a couple grouping style widgets here to kind of look at bidirectional traffic. Hovering over column A, where we are again, originating or terminating CUCM end user custom attribute 1, very lengthy and a little cumbersome to see, as well as originating and the terminatings. Maybe we want something a little more identifiable, inbound versus outbound. Certainly we can go ahead and do so. So I'm going to do the same thing with the custom label appearance here. Let's go ahead and modify that. Certainly there is an appearance on each one of the widgets. You could certainly edit and select different label sets to attribute to different widgets on the same board. You could certainly do that, or board wise, as I'm doing for this demonstration. Okay, come on. It's not that much data. Oh, this one's got a little bit of data in it. Okay, well, this guy is, there we go. Now it loads up. Okay, here we are. So now we can see, here's my custom labels, originator terminating office code. That looks good. Here's originator terminating location, excuse me. And these are our custom attributes 1 and 2 for my end users. It's our abandonment rate. We've replaced the originating and terminating with outbound and inbound. And as well, if we wanted to even build out maybe a history details widget to actually kind of see this information, I've definitely utilizing the custom labels on a handful of pieces here, caller ID, caller device, et cetera, and we can certainly see our attributes here. So here's attribute 1 on the originating office code, as well as here's attribute 2. The hover over is pretty straightforward right there. So a lot of good pieces we can have on the dashboard. The nice thing about, oh, I did not mention this, excuse me. On the reports, you could also have the option to include a label appendix. So I'll show you where that's actually ran. But if I go to the very bottom of my report that's using my custom label sets, if we wanted to include the appendix, we can certainly append that to the very end of the report and actually show the default labels in the new custom label definitions. So certainly can do that. Okay, so now from here, let's take a quick look at how are labels applied. Now, labels are user-based. So certainly we can actually force end users actually to have certain label sets, or we can certainly select one on the fly if we have the rights to go ahead and do so. So you can certainly do that at the board level, at the report level. But I want to show you on the user level how the definition is kind of set for them. Now, I don't have any built for this necessarily, but I at least want to show you where the configuration for this is. And I'm running a little light on time, so I will try to speed this up as smoothly as possible. Okay, into my end users, probably just pick on my mat. Oh, come on. I do have a couple mat tests in here, and I'm actually in the wrong lab. That's fine. I'll just pick on Dan's user here. So also at the very bottom of the users, we can specify what label sets they get. So for instance, this is Dan's login to my lab. I could certainly force his account to actually have this label set from an administrative perspective, or we can leave it off on default, and they can have the options to select them later down the line if need be. But then also from the reports, let's jump into these. I'm not going to run any at the moment, but certainly from the report repository that everyone has certainly seen, excuse me, the report bucket that everyone has seen, certainly we can run on-demand ad hoc reports, but also we can specify if we want to run a custom label set on it or use the system default. This is actually where the appendix was that I showed in the report. That's where that would be turned on. But by default, this is set to system default until you have a label set. But even once you have a label set, you'll need to assign it. This lab is recognizing some of my breadcrumbs. But also these can be put on automation as well. And I'm in the wrong cluster is why, excuse me. It's webinar. I don't have anything automated here, but if I were to automate a report, certainly once again, I should have access to the custom label set underneath the deliverables. Here we are, underneath delivery, there's system default, Matt's label set is there. So certainly we can use this on automation for the reports or the dashboard widgets. A lot of good fun stuff there as well. So definitely can turn on the labels from the My Account slip by your own login user, or even if you want to go ahead and do those individually on a per widget basis, you certainly could. All right, so I guess I'm a little light on context. At the very end here, I'm just going to plug our webinars page because Dan will plug everything else. But please do know that verify.com, underneath the webinar section here, we do have a suggestion bucket here. So if you want to see anything that we haven't covered in a webinar, in a future webinar, please feel free to go ahead and drop a suggestion in here. All right, that is all the content I have. I'm sorry I went so long. Dan, do we have any questions, sir?
Yeah, nice job, Eddie. I appreciate it. I definitely could see how this custom labels could certainly help some of our customers understand a little bit more versus the Cisco verbiage. So that could be confusing sometimes. So nice job.
Oh, certainly.
We do have a couple questions here. Hopefully we could get answered here relatively quickly. So Scott, it's a kind of a long question, so I'm going to try to break it down here. So Scott, you mentioned there being 5 custom attribute options. What would you recommend the attributes portray? Should it be org level based information, or can it be basically any data point from AD, such as like a cost or account number?
That is a great question, and good question. Thank you for posing that. Certainly, for our 5 attributes, it definitely comes down to, I guess, maybe the more environmental preference, but you certainly can have whatever you need to in those 5 custom attribute fields, whether it's a cost center code, whether it's some type of organizational reference, or if it's just something that's just actually kind of a user definable. Certainly we can encompass all of those. So it definitely kind of comes down to preference and use case, I suppose. But good question.
Cool, thanks, Matt. And then last question we have is from Jesse. Jesse wants to know if custom labels can be defined by normal users, or does it have to be defined by an admin user?
That is a great question. And actually that is an administrative function to apply those. So certainly I'm logged in here with my admin functionality. So actually I take that back, Dan. Maybe double check. Can users have access to custom label sets? I think actually they can.
I believe users can access them. But they can't creating of the label sets needs to be done by an admin user. But yeah, those could be shared out accordingly once they're created by an admin user. Yeah.
Yep, definitely. Okay, yeah, thank you for covering that. So yeah, the users can certainly utilize custom label sets, but they cannot create them. So yes, good question, Jesse.
Excellent. Looks like that's all the questions we have for today's session.
Okay.
All right, so at this point, I know we're a couple minutes over here, but the time that we all been waiting for here, let's go ahead and announce this week's $50 Amazon gift card winner. So let me go ahead and share out my screen here.
Yep, after you. Drum roll.
All right, drum roll. This week's winner is Paul Franklin. Thank you all for joining us this week, and thank you to everyone else for joining us as well. Please be on the lookout for new webinars on the page that Matt had announced earlier, verify.com/company/webinars. And as always, we're always looking for new suggestions, as Matt stated. So please, if you want to see something that we quite haven't done yet, please suggest it to us, and we'll more than likely add it into our rotation. Just as another plug, if you haven't already registered, please do register for next week's seasonal Variphy house party. Again, $5,000 in prizes, a lot of deep dive technical sessions, and roadmap for future looking items. So always a lot of fun, and it's St. Patrick's Day, so we'll be having our green beer for sure.
Certainly.
All right, that's it for today, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Go out, be safe. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Take care. Bye.